Who is the all-time greatest players in each conference? We give our Mount Rushmore picks next on Good Sports. Thanks for joining us. I'm Randy Goode and looking forward to talking to you about our Mount Rushmore picks. But before we get started, please quickly hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to us. It helps us get our content out. And so we'd really appreciate it. Also, add comments. We reply back and get some good feedback. And we really do listen to what you're saying. And maybe you have some ideas of things that you'd like us to talk about in the future. So we can get going on that and keep talking. And so we appreciate everything you guys do and all the support. But for now, we're going to start with the NFC, our Mount Rushmore picks. We'll each give our picks. I'm going to start off with the first person of my top four, not necessarily in any order, but top four players of all time in the NFC, starting off with, of course, Joe Montana. 49ers, I think this was probably a no-brainer. He, in the NFC, is a four-time Super Bowl champion, three-time MVP in the Super Bowl, the only quarterback to throw, I believe it was 11 or 12 touchdowns in the Super Bowl and 0 interceptions. Montana, 8-time Pro Bowl, dominated the league, did have 2 strike-shortened seasons, and back then they used to kill quarterbacks, so his career didn't last as long as some of the others, but dominated wherever he went. And so he would be definitely, without a doubt, on the Mount Rushmores of the NFC. So that's my number one pick. I'm also joined alongside with Cameron Harkleroad and Trent Sneed. And so, Trent, who do you have as somebody on your NFC's Mount Rushmore?
And just a random question, Randy.
Yes.
You wouldn't happen to think that Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time, would you? Whoa, before you answer that, we're going to get canceled off the radio.
No. Absolutely. That's an argument for another day, and it's a harder argument. But on the Mount Rushmore, it's very obvious. But anyway, he has to be on the NFC.
Oh, does he?
On the NFC.
Does he?
If he's not, we need a good sports drug test. So go ahead.
I just want to say the NFC is absolutely stacked.
Yes.
And there is a lot of players that are going to get left off this where you're like, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
But you can only, if we're only picking four. Yeah, I mean,
between offense and defense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
special teams. Don't forget the special teams.
Special teams. You never know. A special teamer can make it down here.
There will be one.
Little foreshadowing. Okay, so I went 2 defensive players, 2 offensive players. So there is an offensive player that got snubbed here. So sorry.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
So did I.
I got my man. He was an Eagle.
He
also liked the cheese. Reggie White.
Yes, he was my alternate.
Yeah. Yep. I think if you're going to go defensive players, it really came down to Reggie White or Deion Sanders for me.
Yep.
There's some safeties in there that I could put up there pretty high. Ronnie Lott, of course. But anyways, so I went with Reggie White. The reason being is I still feel like even today, especially back then, really the defensive ends, the defensive tackles, just the D linemen in general, they really, for the most part, are still one of the most crucial parts of a defense. Yes. You don't have a lot of successful teams in the NFL who don't have a stud at the defensive line.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
He would take huge offensive linemen and chuck them with one arm. He had 198 sacks. I almost had him in my top 4. And he had, this is crazy to me, 13 straight Pro Bowls.
Yep.
13 straight.
And held the sack record for, it was like, 20 years or something like that?
Yeah, for a long time.
Until Michael Strahan took it.
Yep.
But
that was a little wishy-washy how he got his last
We don't
sack.
need to talk about that. He worked hard for the other ones.
He had a guy take a fall. But
anyways, Reggie White, I just feel like, first of all, I would say that you could probably throw someone similar to like an Aaron Donald type of player where he could play all across that defensive line. There was a lot of times they moved him around. Not the first player to move around the defensive line like that, but definitely one of the first ones you think of when you think of players who moved up and down the line where they used him in crucial spots. Now today, that's something that every NFL team's doing where they're taking defensive ends or defensive tackles and they're just moving them around on the defensive line. Or you see defensive ends that also are going out to cover like linebackers. They're just doing special packages with those guys that they see fit as special players.
Right.
Something that was definitely heavy with Reggie White. You saw him line up in many different formations, whether the 3 tech, the 5 tech. He's out deep on the outside. At one point, he even had a defense where I think it was Buddy Ryan was starting to do some of the wide 9 stuff, which for that type of person at that body weight, that height and size, the way he'd be able to get off that line on a wide 9 is insane. Yeah. But anyways, I just felt like he was too much of a game changer to leave off this. Had an amazing career, great 2 different teams, multiple Super Bowls. So, anyways.
Great pick. One of the things he did that was, some of these players, you have to look and they have to have awe moments. He had several where he'd come off the line. I can't remember if it's Larry Allen or whatever, but he just with one arm
Larry Allen
would take a lineman that's like 340 pounds and just chuck him.
Yeah,
and it's like there's strength and then there's superhuman strength. And he was the minister of defense or whatever they call it. That guy. So he was my alternate.
I think it's pronounced minister of defense is how they said it.
Minister of defense.
Yeah.
So great pick. Sad that we lost him too early to what they said is sleep apnea or whatever.
Yeah.
Really sad, but he was awesome. So that was a good pick. So now, Cameron, name somebody that you have on your bed. You got a big smile. This is going to be a very creative
This is going to go off
list.
the rails so quickly.
Somebody from his school.
It's not going to get bad until we get to the AFC.
The AFC is a lot harder.
It's rough.
Okay.
Very, very rough. But
okay.
NFC, I think my picks are comparable.
Okay.
You mentioned him earlier, who you would swap with Ed Reed, and I chose Deion Sanders. Just for me, I liked his play style, I liked his attitude.
Yep.
He just I tend to lean more towards flashier players.
Yeah. That's fair.
So that those types of guys tend to catch my eye more.
Yeah.
And so just watching him play and his attitude and just how fired up he'd get on the beefs that he would, and just his whole demeanor and just sort of aura on the field was just awesome to watch. And now seeing him as a coach and seeing all the dumb stuff that he does now, it's always fun. So
yeah, prime time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Prime time. That's a great pick. So Deion Sanders. Now we'll go to my second pick or whatever. I have Deion Sanders on my Mount Rushmore too. So I have 2 defensive players, 2 offensive players. What I like about Deion was amazing because he would completely shut a whole side down. Mm-hmm. And so when you can take a team and just say, okay, they're not even going to look, half the time they wouldn't even look that way. And you have a guy that talked so much and he backed it up. Mm-hmm. He was remarkable. He had 53 interceptions and they never threw it his way. He had 6 punt returns for touchdowns. He had 3 or 4 kickoff returns. I think it was 3 for touchdowns. Many more that went the distance, and they hardly kicked to him. They stopped kicking to him, and he still would. And he would say it, if you go to me, it's going downtown. And one of his games where he left Atlanta, came back into Atlanta, and got an interception. It was like a 95-yard touchdown, and he just looked back at the Atlanta bench and put his arm behind his head and he's just running sideways. I mean, that guy had the swag, and he was a stud.
Yeah.
And so that's a good pick. So he would be on my second Mount Rushmore.
I saw a documentary the other day where he played a game for Atlanta, a football game, then got on a plane flight, went and played a baseball game.
Same day.
Mm-hmm. Same day. And it wasn't just any baseball game. Yeah. It was a
playoff baseball game.
It was a playoff baseball game.
Yeah, it was a postseason.
Yeah, it was a postseason baseball game. And then he got back on the plane and went and played another football game.
And he was under immense pressure from the general manager of the Braves, under all sorts of scrutiny. And so he had all this pressure against him. It was very intense. Yeah, that's a great documentary to watch. But
anyways, I mean, I'll say this.
He's insane.
Now that I'm really thinking about it, I should have put Dion there. I messed up.
No.
I'm not changing my pick.
Yes.
I'm not changing my pick.
You're not allowed to.
But Dion.
Yes.
I will say this. This is the one thing you say about Deion Sanders. If you're looking at the greatest football players of all time, there's only one football player in the modern football era that ever played special teams, defense, and offense, and was actually really good. He could have been a wide receiver.
Yes.
And a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That great of an athlete.
He was
and then
great.
he goes out there and he's a lockdown cornerback.
Yep.
And then you put him on special team, punt return, kick return. He could have done it all.
Everything.
You know what's the crazy part too is you probably could have put him at so many positions on that football team, and he would have still been a Hall of Famer.
You know, he was a great basketball player too.
Mm-hmm.
He is another conversation we could have as greatest overall athletes of all time. He has to be considered in that.
Yeah, give me some Bo Jackson action.
Bo Jackson.
Ooh, that's a bad man.
Yeah. Okay, so number 2.
Number 2. Go.
For
Wait,
you.
my number 2.
Your
Yeah,
number
because
2.
yours was Dion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 is, I'm just going to say it now, Joe Montana.
Thank you.
You know,
you have to do Joe.
Listen,
Very
they're
obvious.
honestly the only other person that I would have even considered for the greatest NFC. I feel like you have to have a quarterback in here.
Yes.
They're the greatest at their positions, and if you look at NFC quarterbacks, the only other quarterback I could really consider seriously in my mind was like maybe I was thinking about going for like someone like, they have other quarterbacks that are so good.
I have one. I have one that's not Joe Montana.
Oh Lord.
But hear me out.
You have to. Anyway, we'll go with
Should I save him for last?
whatever you want to do. Sure, you can go
Save
ahead and
him
do
for
that.
last.
Here's the deal. 4 Super Bowls.
4 Super Bowls.
He's undeniably the greatest quarterback in the NFC. The NFC.
Yes,
Tom Brady did play in the NFC.
One
And he won
year.
a Super
That's
Bowl.
insane.
And he
Or
won a
2
Super
years.
Bowl. And
Yep.
he won a Super Bowl.
One time, but in a year and a half.
And he
that's
was
not
like 35.
but that's not a great career.
Yeah.
For 2 seasons.
Yeah. There's so many iconic moments with Joe Montana. I don't think you can put him off this list.
No.
I think the hard part for me is the 2 greatest players in the NFC of all time, I think, are teammates. And
Yes.
That's an issue.
They are. It is what it is.
And listen, hear me out. This is the problem. You don't know how good they would have been apart.
You never know.
You never know.
That's true.
And to be fair, you saw Joe Montana go to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And
He beat the 49ers.
He beat the 49ers, came back, took him to the AFC Championship game, and severely had an elbow thing. He almost got him to the Super Bowl.
So hear me out. He obviously proved that he had some sort of skill after the 49ers when he wasn't with the next person we're going to name, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And listen, at the end of the day, we just don't know. We don't know what 10 years looks like for a Joe Montana who doesn't have the next guy we're mentioning.
Yeah. Well, okay, I can say this.
It's funny.
Because I know who the mystery player that you're talking about that he threw a lot to.
Yeah.
Okay, he won half of his Super Bowls without him.
That's true. That is very true.
That's a great argument.
That is a great argument, and I'll say this: those receiving cores before the guy we're not going to talk about, yet, they weren't really that great.
No, he had Freddie Solomon.
Yeah.
He did have Dwight Clark as
Dwight
his tight
Clark,
end.
yep.
I mean, there was Rolando Nehemiah. Some of them are no names.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
And then, listen, you could get into the head coach being a big part of that
Bill
as well.
Walsh was a genius.
But,
That's true.
man, I mean,
That's
he
true.
literally was the start of the West Coast offense. But here's the deal. The West Coast offense with Bill Walsh, it doesn't get to where it's at today with having an executioner like Joe Montana who performed it in such a manner that every other team in the NFL was then like, hey, we should run this offense.
Yeah.
And now you have people like Patrick Mahomes who run a version of the West Coast offense, and it's extremely dominant.
Yeah.
And Andy Reid's been nickel and diming it since he was at the Eagles, right? But that offense, no one goes to copycat it if you don't have a Joe Montana who came in and learned how to execute it to the T to be able to be successful like that. So that's the reason he makes the list for me. I don't think it's super arguable, but we're going to see how Cameron does it.
I'm not throwing my quarterback out there yet.
Okay.
I'm not throwing him to the
We got to
dogs
protect
quite
him.
yet.
Okay, go ahead. Number 2 for Cameron.
Number 2, Jerry Rice,
Yes.
who you guys were
Yes.
referring to.
We might as well get to that. Can we all just say we got
Arguably
Jerry Rice?
the best wide receiver of all time, in my opinion. Even though I there's a few that I like more.
Yeah.
I think just overall, you can't really argue that he's.
Hear me
probably
out.
the best wide receiver ever.
I know he's not on any of our lists, but I do think that just it is so hard to leave Randy Moss off this list for me.
Well,
it wasn't that hard for me.
No. I'm not saying that it wasn't hard. I'm not saying that it wasn't hard for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm saying for me personally,
Yeah.
I know we all have Jerry Rice on our list.
Yeah.
But it was really hard for me not to have Randy Moss in here. The actual dominance of that guy was insane. But I'm just going to leave it there.
Yes.
I just want to say, as far as freaking natures,
Yes.
you could throw him the deep ball. You could throw it up in the air to him. Listen, Jerry Rice was an absolute assassin with his routes.
Yes.
Absolute assassin. You go back and watch his routes. He was so ahead of his time.
Yeah.
His route timing, his route tree was disgusting.
Yep.
Okay? But he was never the jump ball guy like Randy was.
No, I would say this. Jerry Rice. So we're going to go to my third. I'll just say Jerry Rice as well. So I'm following Cameron so far. It sounds like he might struggle at the end, but he's doing really good at the beginning.
I'm absolutely going to
impressed.
fall apart at
Yes,
the end.
that's okay. So we all have our
I'm gonna lose
moments.
all my
We all
support.
have our moments, but you're doing really good so far. But let me explain. So Jerry Rice, it is more insane than you have any idea. Randy Moss, I would say, if you said best deep ball catcher of all time, Randy Moss. He was a freak. Now you could say Megatron was really good too, but Randy Moss was incredible. But let me just go over Jerry Rice. When he retired. If you get an NFL record, it's incredible. He retired with 38 NFL records. 38. I didn't even know there was 38 records. Okay. Now, Randy Moss is incredible. Let me just show you the difference in stats between Randy Moss, because I was ready for this.
Oh, okay. Okay. He was prepared.
Receptions. Randy Moss, 982. That's incredible. Jerry Rice, 1,549. Okay. Yards. Randy Moss, 15,292 yards. Jerry Rice, 22,895. Way more. Touchdowns. Overall touchdowns. When Jerry Rice broke the all-time record, I remember as a Monday night game against the Oakland Raiders. Okay? He broke it. 101 touchdowns overall. That's what broke it. He ended with 207. Wow. So he broke the all-time record at 101. Now, Randy Moss would have shattered it too. Randy Moss had 156. Jerry Rice, 207. Jerry Rice threw for almost a 50-yard touchdown once. He ran for 10 touchdowns. Okay.
That's such a random thing. He threw a touchdown.
No. You got to watch the play. It's an incredible play. Man, I hope we can show this.
Is it just like a flea flicker?
It is, and it gets bobbled. There's a mistake on it, and he gets clocked as he throws it, and it's a dart to J.J. Stokes. You got to watch it. It's incredible.
Hear me out. Nick Foles did that one time.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I saw that in an Eagles game one time.
Jerry Rice had 14 years of 1,000 reception yards. Okay. This was also done before it was a passing league. That's what people don't even realize.
Yeah.
He broke all these records before it was a passing league. It was a running league. So incredible. All right.
I'll say this too. Jerry Rice, he also played with a lot of really talented teammates.
He did.
Which even as he moved around kind of in his later years, he kind of became a journeyman.
But in
even
Oakland,
as a journeyman, he played with some very talented.
Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
Rich Gannon was a quarterback. He helped him get with Tim Brown. And he dominated in Oakland.
For a season, people were like, Rich Gannon's going to be the next greatest quarterback of all time. And then that didn't play out. But
it didn't play out.
They did say that. There was one season.
They made it to the championship and against Gruden and Tampa Bay got him.
But Jerry Rice played on Oakland at the same time Tim Brown was there.
Tim
Brown, also
a great receiver.
One of the best receivers of all time. I mean, he's probably in the top 25, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
25.
Yeah, probably top 25, I would imagine.
Yep.
But most people would never know him as a household name.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he plays for the 49ers late in his career where he's got Terrell Owens, right?
Yeah.
He plays in his early years with John Taylor. And I guess what I'm saying is I want to put this in perspective too. he wasn't just playing with other nobody wide receivers. He was playing with other people who are stealing those attempted targets.
So what I will say about Jerry Rice is there was a year where a quarterback by the name of Drunken Miller for the 49ers played, and he was thought, oh, he's going to be awesome. I mean, he never did anything after that year. Jerry Rice helped him. Jeff Garcia was great. He helped Terrell Owens. Sometimes it's a match, and it's hard to antiquate. Like Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. Andy Reid is a fantastic coach. If Patrick Mahomes and those two didn't meet, where would they be? Where would Pat Riley and Magic Johnson? They merged well, so it's hard to know where they're at. But I want to say a couple things before I move on about Jerry Rice. These stats: 151 yards, catches. 2,244 all-purpose yards and 22 touchdowns. That's his playoffs. 2,245 yards in the playoffs versus Moss, 977. 22 touchdowns versus 10. So you got a great all-timer, and then you got Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice is just next level. So
okay,
he would be my number 3. Who's your number 3?
Let me throw a wrench in this whole thing real quick.
Okay.
Oh boy.
I just want to throw some out there.
Okay. I'm gonna boomerang it maybe.
Will Mike Evans maybe break some of Jerry Rice's records?
No.
I mean, the guy is literally still doing it though.
Yeah. The only thing that will
it's
help,
incredible.
The thing that
he literally plays alongside an also 1,000-yard receiver for the last 5 to 6 years, but he still is ageless. The guy was at his height of football when he played with Johnny Manziel. That's how long ago that he's been in the NFL.
The thing that's hard now about things is when you change the rules, so now you have an extra game, a whole extra game will allow records to be broke. When you have 17 games versus 16, and that adds up over the career, it does change things. So some things can fall because of that, but Evans is great. He's great. Big receiver, great hands.
Every time I go and look at the season stats at the end of the year, I'm just like, when did he do that? Mm-hmm. It's incredible. You're just like, the guy has played along, like I said, Chris Godwin for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So he's had another 1,000-yard wide receiver fighting for attempts. He's never really had a quarterback outside of having Tom Brady for 2 years.
Hey, he had Baker.
Yeah, Baker.
I love Baker Mayfield.
He's probably not going to win another Super Bowl because he's probably going to stay with Tampa Bay for the rest of his career.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So the Super Bowls will never line up for him. Mm-mm. But overall, just longevity.
Great receiver.
Is insane.
But listen, we're talking Mount Rushmore.
Okay, my bad. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out there.
If you wanted to do the Bucks Mount Rushmore, I don't think he'd make that. But
what? We're not even going to go there. That's a crazy take.
Anyway, time out.
No time out.
You don't know the defense that the Bucks have.
Care.
You should know.
Now's not the time.
Yes. He might make it.
I'm going to start a fight.
Someone
put in the comments. We need to
number
do a Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
He might make it.
Mount Rushmore.
Are you just doing Jerry Rice as your number 3?
Yeah, just do Jerry Rice. You can go into yours.
My number 3 is going to be Sir Jason Kelce. What was that look for?
Dang, you didn't see that one coming. You didn't see that one coming, did you?
What does that look for?
Fly,
the drug
Eagles,
test.
fly.
The best lineman
on the
to
road
ever
to
play.
Victory.
The best lineman to ever play the game.
No.
Absolutely. Revolutionized the center position.
Listen.
Okay, I'm going to go with Guy. What's his last name? He's the punter for the Oakland, because he's the greatest punter of all time. He kicked it really, really far back in the 80s.
So are you downplaying the importance of the O-line?
No, he's not only downplaying the importance of the O-line, Cameron, he's downplaying the importance of the center, which is also known as the quarterback of the line.
If you start a franchise, you start it with a quarterback,
Who's
and then then your left tackle. That's who everybody always picks first, and then you take a defensive lineman. Then you
your
go
quarterback
receiver,
can't
cornerback.
get the ball to begin with if you don't have a good center.
I'll tell you what, the center is a captain of the offensive line. Mm-hmm. They are more important than your guards, but they are not more important than your left tackle. And the pay structure is very obviously shows that.
Listen, hold up, time out.
Go ahead. But he's good.
I think your left tackle your tackles are important for running, not as important for blocking.
If you were gonna,
Joe Montana's career was cut short because his back was severed. I mean, it was and it's from your weak side. So you up the middle. I'm not trying to say it's not important. All the positions are important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's your opinion, and so I got to be careful. But you did throw me. It's nice to have curveballs. I think that was like a knuckle.
There's one
It was
more.
like a knuckle
There's one
wiffle
more.
ball. There's more.
This one's the next one's gonna hit the dirt.
Is it going to
And
be
you're gonna swing for the fences.
Oh, we're going to
buddy.
hear the long snapper
swing
of
for the
all time.
fences.
Okay, all right, that's okay. So give me his stats that would say
I don't know his
he
stats.
blocks really, really well. One time he really pushed somebody over.
He's
really,
just-
really far.
He revolutionized the center position. He
Podcast.
well, that too. But I mean, I don't know. He just
Okay.
as a lineman to be that notable and to be as influential on a team and impactful on a position as he was is just, I think, telling to his skill level.
So are you putting some importance into the leadership, locker room,
Absolutely.
and everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because he
I can
does have
agree on
that.
Yeah.
He does have. That's going to be interesting this year to see how much they lost in that as much as the other. So
Yeah.
okay,
I think.
we all have freedom to pick
Listen,
whatever we want. Jason Kelsey never thought a center would make it,
hear me out.
but good for you. It's bold, nuts.
The next one's bolder.
See, listen. Okay,
We
100%.
need to cue the drug test.
100% honesty. If you were starting a franchise and you could take Trent Williams in his prime or Jason Kelsey in his prime,
Trent, no doubt. And I think 90.
would you say Trent Williams?
out of 100?
Would you say Trent Williams is the greatest left tackle of all time? Who would you say is the greatest?
Larry Allen is really tough. Munoz from this is before you guys' time. Probably Munoz from Cincinnati is number one.
Yeah,
Larry
I can
Allen,
see Munoz.
Larry Allen is up there, but Munoz would be number one.
Yeah, I would probably say Munoz, to be honest with you, if I was going to pick one.
And Ogden from Baltimore was up there. He was insane.
Let me tell you why I would take Jason Kelsey over Munoz today. Okay. I would understand the argument saying that left tackles and right tackles get paid more due to the protection of the quarterback. Mm-hmm. This is why I say I would take Jason Kelsey over even the best left tackle of all time right now.
Okay.
This is why I'm
two drug tests.
To be very clear,
Maybe you need the drug test.
To be very clear, I'm saying in today's football.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
The center is responsible for all checks on the offensive line. You have defensive coordinators who are sending the most complicated blitz packages of all time today. There's times where Jason Kelsey has quoted saying he has changed the protection setup 4 to 5 times within one singular play. Okay? And he's doing that on the fly. That's not the responsibility of his quarterback.
Okay.
Now, the quarterback is being made aware of those things as he changes those, right?
Yeah.
And the quarterback's changing his too. So he might make a protection change, and then the quarterback changes the play on an audible, and then he's got to make another protection change.
Sure.
Because it's audible to a new play, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very complicated system that they have to do these days. Now, protection changes are way more complicated than they've ever been. In fact, he went into a super detailed play in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs where they lost, but it was a drive where he ended up making a protection change, and he says that is the most regrettable play of my whole entire career. He said, because if I would have made one difference in that protection, we would have scored there and we would have won the Super Bowl. And that's the crazy part is I think I understand what you're saying, where left tackles and your right tackles, depending on if you have a left-handed or right-handed quarterback, they get paid a lot of money because of what they do, right?
Okay.
Protecting the blinds of the quarterback. But I'll say this, when you say the center position is truly the quarterback of the offensive line, I think the brain power of a Jason Kelsey, I would probably take him first because I think he could make everyone else on the offensive line 10 times better. Mm-hmm. A great left tackle like Trent Williams, I think still makes the whole right side of your team suck. Does that make sense? You know?
I understand.
I don't think the left tackle...
Your argument is that position helps more
everyone
people
else
versus one does.
Correct.
For two.
If you had the greatest left tackle of all time, you're still going to suck everywhere else because the left tackle is not, his job isn't to help everybody else. But the center, he is helping everybody else in this case.
Okay.
And I think, especially in today's football game, I think with all the protection changes, I think it makes a big difference. Now, if we're talking about playing football in the 70s, when the protection differences was we're going to run the ball or we're going to pass the ball, I probably would say it maybe made less of a difference. But that would be my argument for today.
So I hear what you're saying. I mean, those are logical things. I'll just give you a quick stat I was looking up. There has been 8 centers that have come out and done something since 2000 draft that were drafted in the first round. Okay, so there's not very many that have made it in the first round that have done something. So that's 24 years. In just 2008 alone, this is what GMs think. They've taken left tackles. They took 8 in just 2008 in the first round. So people are going, teams are basically valuing this position over that position, the ones in the know. So, and they pay twice as much. So you can get a great left tackle for the price of a great center and a great guard or 2. Like you can get all 3 of those for one price, or at least 2 of them. But they are a very important position, and I think center probably is the most important center that is devalued, that people don't realize.
Yeah,
the significance of it over everything. So
my only argument to what you just said that probably isn't really the greatest argument. I'll just be 100% honest with you. Is the value by position changes so much throughout the years. Like running backs were so devalued for the last 2 to 3 years, and you saw a bunch of the running backs this offseason get absolutely paid. But you're still not seeing a lot of running backs go high in the draft anymore, right? That's not really a super big thing.
Yeah.
But we could be in the next couple of years, and every team wants a Christian McCaffrey. We might see the value of running backs go back, and they might start drafting them again.
And right now, the whole league is about quarterbacks. So you take your quarterback, and then you get your guy that protects your quarterback, and then you get your guy that hurts the quarterback.
Yeah.
Those are your 3. And so a center doesn't necessarily do that, but they do help control an offense.
Yeah.
So
And to be honest with you, who's going to change that would also be my next argument. Because if you can get Jason Kelce in the 6th round, you're not going to take him in the 1st.
No. Right.
Right. So, anyways.
Okay. So, where are we at here?
Okay, I think we're on your 4th.
Your 4th.
Yeah.
Last,
so, 4th.
Your last pick.
Last pick.
Okay. So, I hope you guys have this guy in there. But
pretty sure
I don't.
It is a little bit. He doesn't. That's true.
I think we're the same on this.
So it's Lawrence Taylor of the Giants. Lawrence Taylor of the Giants. If it wasn't for his unfortunate drug situation, I just heard that guy was insane. So Lawrence Taylor was insane. He had the most gruesome play that's been in the NFL. It was a Monday night against
ever
Joe
seen
Theismann.
on TV.
Yes, it was horrible. It was anyway. It ruined Joe Theismann's career or whatever. But Lawrence Taylor had 132.5 sacks, 10 fumble recoveries, 9 interceptions. When you talk about MVPs, he is the last defensive player to also win Most Valuable Player.
Yeah.
1986. It doesn't happen. He did it. He was feared. Every team planned everything around him. I just heard him interviewed, and the poor guy had some drug issues that I was mentioning. He was just saying, I was driving by the stadium, and he noticed the lights on in the stadium. He's like, what's going on there? So he goes to the stadium, and lo and behold, he was supposed to be in a game. This is before, so he shows up, puts his uniform on. He didn't know that it was the game was when it was. I don't know what was going on in his head. And he shows up, and he started in the second quarter. And Bill Parcells' coach was pretty angry, who had a temper problem anyway. And he just said Bill Parcells was mad at me, but he thought it was his team, but we all know it's my team. So anyway, but Lawrence Taylor was a menace.
Yeah,
he was a menace, and he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we kind of talked about the positional versatility that Reggie White brought and what made him unique in the NFL. I think the Lawrence Taylor, he's kind of the reason why when I talked about Reggie White not being the first of his kind, Lawrence Taylor was that.
Yes.
Lots of positional versatility, they moved him around an absolute ton. Bill Parcells, who is another defensive mind that was, I would say, on the elite side.
Yes.
He obviously went on to have a great career coaching for multiple teams, but he really saw Lawrence Taylor early on in his career and said, I can do a lot more than just make him a down, put his hand on the dirt type of defensive end.
Yeah.
Which also increased his career.
Yep.
Drug issues.
3-time defensive MVP. 3-time. Anyway, so who would be your...
That's mine.
That's on yours
That's
as well.
my fourth. Yeah.
Okay.
I have Lawrence Taylor there.
Good.
I just think it's hard for me to argue that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Fair enough.
I thought the Reggie White thing was pretty movable, but the Lawrence Taylor one was pretty solid for me. I just think this is the thing. When you think of the greatest players of all time, if you went into almost any average household, they're going to know who Lawrence Taylor is.
Absolutely.
He ruined one of the greatest quarterbacks in that era.
A Hall of Famer.
Joe
Theismann.
He ruined his career in just one play.
Yeah.
And the craziest part is you watch the play and he's instantly concerned, like, oh my God, I just ruined his career.
Yeah.
Like he knew.
Yeah.
Like he knew.
Everybody heard it. It was bad.
Yeah.
That was bad. So I am excited. Right now, Cameron has me on the edge of my seat. I am looking forward to hearing Ray Guy of the Oakland Raiders punter, Hall of Famer.
So I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot about
Ray Guy?
Lawrence Taylor.
Oh,
Lawrence Taylor.
Okay.
That is a good one. Probably should have had it on my list.
That's
I
okay.
don't.
Okay.
So you're talking about quarterbacks, and you're talking about Joe Montana. Both of you have Joe Montana. I'm curious who you think I took.
Gosh. So sometimes I think your picks like to just have some fun, and I don't know if it's genuine
This
or
one
not.
is pretty genuine, but it's because I watched this person play, so I have a little more.
You watched him
there.
play. Okay, so that rules out who I was afraid you were going to say, Troy Aikman.
No.
Troy.
I thought maybe you were just trying to get to me.
Listen.
Okay.
I'd take Roger Staubach before Troy.
Okay,
Aikman.
are you going to say Aaron Rodgers?
I'm not going to say Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, because he's a great quarterback. And at times there was a season. Okay, would you say Drew Brees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who I picked. Drew Brees.
I could see that.
I picked Drew Brees just because I watched him play more, and so I know I recognize that Joe Montana is a great quarterback, but I couldn't put 3 49ers on my Mount Rushmore. I couldn't do it.
Well, Deion was only 1 year.
He was still 49ers.
And
he
he was
wore
great.
a uniform.
That would be gross. I would
I
say
couldn't
that.
do it. I could not do it, and I refused.
I kept Ronnie Lott off. I was doing my best.
I refused. So I put Drew Brees, and
He's a great
I
quarterback.
think he's a great quarterback. It's hard to say because they had very different play styles. Drew Brees was much more of he was more mobile than Joe Montana, but he doesn't have the accolades that Joe Montana has Super Bowl wise. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just different play styles and different eras for sure. But I think Drew Brees is on mine personally.
Drew Brees was amazing. He was traded away, and they got LaDainian Tomlinson in that trade. They went back and forth, and they went with Phillip Rivers.
Yep.
And so they were wondering, is his shoulder going to be a problem, and could he come back? And then he goes to New Orleans and was fantastic. And then the Katrina, that was a cool year for them.
Yeah.
To have them do that well at that time.
He inspired a whole entire city
Yeah.
to continue moving on.
Yep. Yeah. He's a great quarterback.
Yeah.
And his completion percentage was one of the things he was known for. So okay.
I would say this.
It wasn't as bad. You didn't go with a punter or a long snapper.
Do you ever think about?
Not yet.
Do you ever think about the fact that you take
Pat McAfee.
you take a
wish.
Drew Brees and you put him with an actual historically winning franchise?
Yeah.
I mean, the
On the
Chargers
Saints.
never going to win. Right?
That would be a good thing to talk about. If you put a quarterback in a different team, who would be on that? Like Dan Marino, you put him with legit receivers for years, or different things like that,
Yeah.
or different. Yeah,
I mean, okay, I watched too much Colin Cowherd, but
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he always has this big thing he says where it's like it's really important for young quarterbacks to go to franchises they're going to do really good at developing them, and a lot of times that has a lot to do with the owner, GM, head coach, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And just the history of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
You take a Drew Brees and you put him in, I don't know, 49ers red.
Yeah.
It's probably a much different career that he has.
True.
And it's probably a much more winning career.
Yeah.
He took a Chargers franchise, played pretty dang good for him. Not really the greatest. Obviously, they're looking for other options. They're concerned about his shoulder history, but pretty dang good. He took them to some great games, and ultimately, he probably was never going to win there because the Chargers are never going to win.
Right.
Anyways, poor John Harbaugh. Or, sorry, Jim. My bad.
Jim, yeah.
I don't know. They have chances here. They have a real chance.
Anyways,
I hope they
and
do
then
well.
he goes to New Orleans, and he takes a New Orleans franchise to a Super Bowl, not a winning franchise whatsoever, takes them to a Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl, which
one.
is incredible, just to get the one for New Orleans. And they'll probably never win another Super Bowl.
Probably not.
Well, I mean, at least in the next 20 to 25 years, they're probably not going to win another Super Bowl. So you have two teams who historically are not that great. I just think it'd be amazing to take someone like Drew Brees, who went to two historically bad franchises, and put them on, in that same era, put them on a historically good franchise.
Yeah.
You'd probably get a much different result.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. So,
NFC.
thank you for trying.
Woo, that was fun.
That was good. I mean, all good players, and so it's hard to argue. A couple of the players that I didn't put was Reggie White and Ronnie Lott. I think they would be in that conversation, but I think they're the next people out, in my opinion. But Reggie White, they're both really.
Do you
good.
want to hear my
I would say
honorable mentions?
My argument for Reggie or for Ronnie Lott that would be considered is he's one of the only that was an All-Pro at cornerback, and then he moved to safety and was an All-Pro there too. That's very hard to do, to switch positions and dominate at the best.
I had Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, I think, was the most. He's hard to argue that he's not the best. But he's the most entertaining, whatever it is. Yeah.
Emmitt Smith.
Okay, great.
And then I had Ronnie Lott, Deion Sanders, and gosh, this is kind of a homer pick for honorable mentions, but Brian Dawkins.
Okay.
Oh man, it's hard for me because I'm like,
that's okay.
Listen, the story behind.
The thing is, though, you were invested in them, so you watched him and you knew him.
Yeah,
so that's fine.
I just remember Takeo Spikes. He played for the 49ers for a long time. He played for the Eagles before he played for the 49ers, and he's like, yeah, man, we were just in the locker room, and Brian, he's always just walking around, pacing around, and then he looks me dead in the eye and he goes, Spikes, I'm going to take his soul. Which I think is hilarious. It's
That's next level.
Takeo Spikes is like,
wow.
You gonna do what? But I just think that's great. But he was a very, I mean, anyways, he stopped the bus, which is something to be said by that. But anyways, that
scares me.
That was my homer pick.
So now let's move to the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this one was a lot harder. When you think of all the people that have played, I would think it would be harder to get people on. I was actually surprised at the elite players in the AFC that were not as significant as the NFC.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm going to start off with the no-brainer.
Well, why it's surprising right now, Randy, is because we're in a position right now where the AFC is much more dominant.
Yeah, there's more teams in the AFC right now.
There's more teams in the AFC that you're like, they're Super Bowl contenders than the NFC, and it's been like that for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why it's surprising for us now.
Yeah.
But when you look back in history, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
It does. Well, okay, so we get this lack of the things out of the way. This is very obvious, but Tom Brady is insane what he's done. He obviously won 7, but we're talking AFC, he won 6. Spread out over a long career, consistent, survived not only Super Bowl losses and different things, survived Deflategate, still won afterwards.
Tuck rule.
Spygate. I mean, they might have taken the rules and played with them significantly multiple times, but he is phenomenal. You can't underestimate his heart, his determination, his leadership, and his success. Mm-hmm. So, million stats, you could say. He's phenomenal. So we'll go with Tom Brady. That's my number 1 on my list. Trent, what about you?
I'm gonna go to the guy, also known as the Sheriff.
The sheriff.
The sheriff, Peyton Manning.
Okay.
The forehead himself.
The forehead himself. Taller than the Colorado Rockies.
Rumor said he didn't wear a helmet. He just painted his head.
Listen, I'm going to go to Peyton Manning next because Tom Brady is technically first on my list, but
Mine too.
I don't. Yeah, so I mean, we can just
We
cross.
just go around.
Do we just want to cross Tom Brady off
Tom
real
Brady,
quick?
Tom
All right.
Brady. Whoa.
Tom Brady.
Okay, boring.
Round
Shocker.
1. Okay. All right.
Two.
We don't need to go 7. Yeah, he's done everything. 3-time MVP,
Yeah.
6 Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll
Anyways.
move on. So you want me to just go to my number 2 then?
Do you have Peyton Manning too?
Peyton Manning.
I also have Peyton.
Peyton Manning. Okay.
Listen, all I'm going to say
stupid.
is my only argument for Peyton Manning being on this list and having 2 quarterbacks for the AFC is this. You take away Tom Brady, Peyton has at least 2 more rings, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
that puts him at 5 rings. And then
Right.
you're saying, oh, yeah, he might be the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
So my argument is if you take away Tom Brady, Peyton Manning's probably the greatest quarterback of all time, if not in contention with Joe Montana.
So and I'm going to say this since we're talking Peyton Manning, because I considered there's some alternates. Mahomes, it's too early.
Yes.
Okay, he has 3 Super Bowls. He's phenomenal. He will most likely be on this list, and Peyton would be bumped off of this list. I would
Correct.
say most likely that will happen.
In the next 3 to 5 years, most likely Peyton's off this list. And he's
Where
on.
we're at today, this is where we're at today. Peyton Manning, 71,940 overall yards. Mahomes, 28,000. Let's say that again, 71 versus 20. So for today, he's not even close there. 5 MVPs versus, 2 or 3. 539-yard touchdowns versus 219. Phenomenal numbers. I think we all predict that Mahomes will pass him.
Yeah.
But he's only halfway through his career.
Yeah.
And Peyton's done. So I put Peyton on there. It was hard, actually. I almost anyway, but I had him on there. So you have him on there.
Yep.
So that's number 2.
So do I.
And you have. Was it hard for you to put him on? It wasn't hard. Okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll say this too. I also think it's really unique too. He had the neck surgery situation, which before kind of Peyton's time, if you had that neck surgery situation, you were never going to play football again.
Yeah.
And he wasn't necessarily the same quarterback after the neck surgery.
No.
I think he was a little bit demobilized.
Yeah.
But for the time and the era, having that neck surgery and then coming out of it, and he's now, playing with a team that's much more elite than probably what he had right before he left the Colts.
Right.
And then he goes on to win a Super Bowl with it and almost wins a second one where Seattle just blows him out of the water.
Max him.
That was.
But he goes to 2 Super Bowls and,
That was rough.
he wins one of them. I think, like I said, for the most part, he had a stellar career. Tom Brady never had to overcome a neck surgery or any type of surgery of that type. So, I mean, it speaks a lot to who he is. Not saying that we should think less of Tom Brady because he didn't have to go over a surgery, but it just speaks a lot to who Peyton was, and being able to be successful after that surgery is incredible.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, he's without a doubt one of the best. And so, anyway, okay, so we will go on to number 3 since we're doing pretty good so far.
Pretty
I
good.
think it's all going to go off the rails here pretty soon. But, okay,
save it for
so
last.
this is pre-us, including me. So, I'm Jim Brown. Jim Brown is...
Did you pick him too?
No, I
No.
had Jim Brown on my
So-
list, but
so-
I was really hoping he wasn't going to do this to me.
So Jim Brown almost couldn't be on the list because of his tenure. He didn't last as long. He quit early, which was smart for him, but he was only 9 seasons.
I'm going to say some really disrespectful Jim Brown stuff here in a second, just so
Okay.
you're
Good.
aware.
No, but he didn't last long. So that would be an argument against him. The argument for him, and I think the era and the time and all that kind of stuff. But Jim Brown had 106 touchdowns. Okay, for a time that was really, that was exceptional. He's one of the only players that averaged over 100 yards for his career, which is insane. He had 12,312 yards in 9 seasons. That's very impressive. Anyway, so I think he was at the top, and he had almost basically every record. It was earlier on in the year, but I I think he was one of the greatest of all times. So
Just 3 quarterbacks.
Huh?
Or sorry, my
No,
bad.
no,
Sorry.
no, no. So
That would be
I'm
insane.
that's
so
all right.
tired.
That's right. We got the drug test coming. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. It's okay.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to say my disrespectful Jim Brown stuff.
Okay.
I absolutely hate when people make the argument, well, he played in the mailman era. We're like, he was going, he had to go to another job after he was done playing football. But he really came from, the era of football he played in is not old.
No, they're tough as nails.
It's old.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me. Listen, that's all I'm going to say is if you watch the film, I watched Jim Brown run the ball, okay? If you watch the film, there's no way he runs for more than 500 yards in today's NFL. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening.
I want to apologize for the older audience.
Don't worry, the people
This
that
is
watch
brought
Jim
to you-
Brown aren't alive anymore.
That's actually
Listen,
true.
okay, someone
he ran over people, though.
hold up, time out. Someone like Walter Payton,
Yeah, he ran over your-
Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, right?
All greats.
They're from an older era, but I think you can still make the excuse that they were very professional at that point in time. The players he was going up against were good, solid, elite players. They were playing for a salary.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Brown played for a very, very long time ago.
A happy meal. Yeah, it is always hard to argue. You can only play who you're playing against.
Yeah,
that's all
fair.
you got. If you take a lot of those players back in the old days in all sports and you put them now, it's a fair argument. Could they go against the Lawrence Taylors and would they get blitzed? I get it. Just who he played against. He was here and everybody else was here, and that's just the only consideration I can do.
My issue with Jim Brown, too, that I would like to also get into that might make people not as upset is the same thing with Gale Sayers, why we don't think he's better than Walter Payton. It just didn't last long. It wasn't very long. Gale Sayers, another very dominant running back. A lot of people can sometimes make an argument for why he's better than Walter Payton. I don't see that argument. But also just the longevity of Gale Sayers. You never know what he was going to go and do. He could have been one of the greatest of all time. He could have been really bad after a couple of years. We see it happen all the time. People play a couple more years and they fizzle out at the end. Anyways.
You mentioned Walter Payton. He was one of my top 10.
Yeah.
I think he's, for NFC, he was fantastic.
But that's going to be my argument for Jim Brown, too.
Fair enough.
I got 10 in the NFC. Oh my gosh!
I'm going to be honest with you. I had Walter.
Wow.
I had Walter Payton 5.
Yeah.
So he was just off the list for me.
Yeah. So he was in, I think, my top 8. But yeah. Anyway, Walter
I just
Payton
think
was fantastic.
I just think watching Walter Payton, there's something about it that was like heavenly music coming down from the sky. Like Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was like very dominant, but it wasn't the same as Walter Payton.
Oh no, they're totally different.
Walter Payton was like an orchestra, and you were just hearing all the different instruments play.
He was he could jump over the pile. I mean, his leap was incredible. He would run through you. He could run around you. He could do a little bit of everything. Barry Sanders was like a pogo stick.
Yeah.
So it was a totally different.
Totally different players. Anyways, moving on. Sorry, I don't have Jim Brown there.
That's okay.
Me either.
That's all right.
That was your number 3 pick, right? We did Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Jim Brown.
Yep.
All right, my number 3. He's the meanest. He's the meanest of them all.
The meanest.
He's the mean Joe Green.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
He's a consideration in the AFC.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna be honest
Mean
with you.
Joe Green.
I was struggling to find defensive players.
Yeah.
I didn't. I found one pretty good.
Okay,
I've got a
we'll
good
get to
one
that
too.
Listen, I was struggling to find a defensive player that I really wanted to put on there, and I just think back the Steelers. We've talked about the Steelers
He
in
was
that time
great.
era in the past. Very dominant,
And he was the best.
and he was the best. He was the best of them all.
Yeah, he was. He was
Yeah,
great.
and then you got the commercials. Come on, great commercials.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yep.
but as far as on the field play goes, I think you could go on for probably on and on about his records, his stats, and everything he did. But I'll say this. He probably played for maybe the second or the first greatest dynasty of all time.
Yep.
And he was probably the most notable player on that dynasty team. And I think that's just about all you need to say.
That's huge. 4-time Super Bowl champ. Yep.
4-time Super Bowl champion, and he was the best. He was by far the best player on the team. I don't think you can say Lynn Swann, Terry Bradshaw, Jack Lambert. I don't think you can say they're better than him.
No. He would be your number one pick.
Yeah, I think maybe Jack Lambert could be close. He'd be in the ballpark.
Who?
Jack Lambert, the linebacker for the Steelers.
Who?
Yeah. Ouch.
Anyways, I think by far he was the best player on a team that goes on to win 4 Super Bowls.
I
don't
have
think
a
there's much
feeling
more
Jack
to say.
Lambert's grandkids are tough, and you better be careful because they might be going.
Oh no!
No, Mean Joe had everything. He had the commercial, which was cool. He has a name, Mean Joe, one of the first cool nicknames.
Yeah.
And he produced, and he had the best teams, and he was the best player.
Yeah.
It was a great pick. Great pick. Okay, Cameron, we're going to move on. I'm loving.
I also have a Steeler.
Oh, who?
He's a little newer.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
No, you did not. Stop.
Is it all about the ponytail?
It was either Polamalu or Ray Lewis. It was
Stop.
It was
And you
between those
picked
two.
Polamalu?
I picked a different Raven. A different Raven.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason I picked Troy
Wait,
Polamalu is
hold
because
Stop. You did not.
yeah, I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You're disgusting. I know what his next pick is.
Well, I know what he's doing. Too.
Oh,
So
man.
I personally think Troy Polamalu is one, if not the best safety to ever play the game. And I think just his play style, like I said earlier, I like the flashier players. I like the guys that are just like out there and in your face.
And he was crazy and
yeah,
would fly.
he was nuts and he was flying all over the place. He could pick the ball off. He could knock you on your butt. You know, you never knew what he was going to give you. And so I think
love different people's perspectives.
yeah.
I would have never thought his name was going to be brought up today. I mean, he's a great player, really good player. Yeah.
Listen,
Okay.
Randy, be careful what you say. We might not get a Head and Shoulders commercial.
He's not. Okay, if we did a Pittsburgh Steelers Mount Rushmore, he is the face of the Pittsburgh Steelers Mount Rushmore. He wouldn't be on the Mount Rushmore. Not if you look at all the players on Pittsburgh.
Timeout. He might.
know
Let me
about
think about it. Let me think about it.
That is really hard. When you think of the Steel Curtain and all the players they had on that team alone, but I love what you bring to the table because you bring people up and I'm like, oh yeah, good player. Guess he's the greatest. But like in your mind, but I love
The
different
thing is like I'm at a different era. Like
I get it.
I'm not going back.
I get it.
I'm not one of those guys who like go back and like watch like tons of film of like these
Fair
older
enough.
guys because
Fair enough.
one, I don't have the time, and
Yeah.
two, it's not that I'm not interested, but it's also like I've seen enough highlights to know that they're good players, and
Yeah.
like I understand that they're ball players.
Yeah.
But I guess I've seen more of more modern players, so that's what is on my mind more.
And I think I can appreciate where you're coming from because you said it earlier, you like to flash.
Yeah.
If you think of a safety that literally would fling himself in the air with no regard. I mean, Ronnie Lott did it with power to kill somebody. Troy Polamalu kind of just would jump first and ask questions later. And so he was a great player. So, can't argue that he was a great
I'm just
player.
thinking about your next pick. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm so distracted.
Just keep in mind.
Listen,
I
okay.
did say
Hold
earlier.
up.
There's
Let me
one
address.
active player.
Let me address.
So far,
Drew,
no
behind the
active
scenes,
player.
can you get a drug test ready to go? Because we definitely need that after this.
Let me address the Troy Polamalu thing. I like playing advocate if I'm on Cameron's side.
Okay, go ahead and try.
There probably was a 3-year stretch where he might have been the greatest
Safety.
defensive player in the league. Maybe 2-year. It was short. But to also make an argument on Cameron's side, he also played in the same time frame as some of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Okay.
I'll just say that.
And against some really strong offenses.
Yes, that is correct. Okay,
But what I was saying is it was close between Ray Lewis and Polamalu. The only reason I chose Polamalu is because I have another Raven on my team. It's
listen.
Well,
to be fair,
why do you
I
say Raven?
time out. I ran into the
'Cause he's
same
a
exact
Steeler.
problem, and I couldn't decide which one I was going to put on my team, so I left them both off. Just going to make a clerical error.
So Troy Polamalu did at least win MVP, defensive MVP 1 year.
He did.
So 1 year, 2011. So he won 1 year. Mount Rushmore. Okay, so number four on my Mount Rushmore. Okay,
What's your number four?
Number four. Cameron said his name. I believe it was you that said that, Cameron. But Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Ray Lewis, especially if you go with the Jason Kelsey thought process of leadership, I think Ray Lewis might be the greatest leader of all time. That guy. I mean, he's insane, his leadership. What he did, he's the only player that has had 40 sacks and more than 30 interceptions. He's the only player to do that. Multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. We won't get into his off-the-court,
Listen,
off-the-field,
allegedly.
things. He, on the field, changed the game.
Yeah.
Completely changed the game. I have, from a defensive standpoint, I love Lawrence Taylor and stuff. I could make an argument that if I was to start a franchise and I knew I had a career, that I would consider him, even though it's a linebacker, I would consider that because of his leadership with his talent. I think he made everybody around him better on the defensive. And so I think, like Cameron was kind of alluding to at the beginning, I think he's incredible. And he anyway, so he's my number four. What do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I left the guy we're not going to talk about yet because it's Cameron's pick. I left him and Ray Lewis off my list because I couldn't pick between the two of them.
Yeah.
As far as those two players go, I think if I was going to start an NFL franchise and you said you get one player of all time, greatest player of all time in offense, one greatest player of all time on defense, I don't think I would be able to pick between the two very easily. I think I would.
I don't think you know who I have.
Okay, maybe I don't. Anyways,
I'm confused because
wait. Do you not have Ed Reed?
No.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say Ed Reed too, but you said Ravens, and we were talking about
active
Steelers.
player.
Oh, okay, my bad. Listen, so I left Ed Reed and Ray Lewis off my list for the very specific reason that I felt like it was...
But they're both alternates then.
Yes. Yeah, I think if I was going to start a defense today and you said you get one defensive player, you get him in his prime, I would struggle picking between the two because I feel like they both were so crucial to what that team was. The identity, they brought an identity to their team.
Yeah.
They brought leadership to their team. They made people around them better. I mean, I remember hearing the way that Bill Belichick, who's supposed to be the greatest coach of all time.
Wrong.
Yeah, anyways.
Thank you. I would have
Hold
thought
up.
you would say the other. I agree. Go ahead.
Timeout. He's supposed to be the greatest coach of all time. He has the most Super Bowls. Anyways, that being said, hearing the way that Bill Belichick talked about him actually changed my mind on how I saw him and Ray Lewis. I used to see Ray Lewis as the 1A and then Ed Reed as the 1B. But
are you talking about the interview where he refers and says, this was the greatest play I've ever seen a defensive player make, Ed Reed? Yeah.
And hearing the way he talked about him made me realize, I'm like, wow.
Okay.
Maybe it's 1A and 1A, between the two. But that being said, I left them both on my list. So getting back to your Ray Lewis pick.
Yes.
I think if we're going with the idea of the Jason Kelsey theory, I 110% without a doubt agree. If you're going to start a team, you need that captain, and who's the person that always makes the play calls, the adjustments. It's your middle linebacker.
Yep.
And I do think that as Ray Lewis played, he made everyone around him better, whether it was cornerbacks, safeties, defensive linemen. I think he made everyone better around him. And I think you look at all the greatest linebackers of all time, your Jack Lamberts, your Brian Urlacher's, all those guys, and you think about it and you're like, I would still take Ray Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
I would still take Ray Lewis. Yeah. Because you know what Ray Lewis could do that a lot of those old school guys couldn't? He could still cover the pass.
Yeah.
And a lot of the new guys, they don't play the run the same way that they used to, right? I just think he's right in between those years where it's kind of a sweet spot, and he was the greatest at that time.
And he had set a record at the time for the most tackles in a season, 184. 156 of those that year were solo tackles. He was just a man among boys, in a way. So, beast. So he's my. What about you? Who's your number 4? Let's go.
You're gonna hate me. Some people call him.
Oh, here we go.
Mr. Swift. I call him Travis Kelce.
Oh gosh. He's really good.
Listen,
I can't. I mean, yes, I can. Yeah.
For me personally, if I was gonna take my top tight end, you know me, I draft him every year in fantasy football the same way every time. I take George Kittle every single year. For me personally, George Kittle's my type of player.
Okay.
He's down and dirty, plays hard in the run. He does everything. That's why I really like our tight end for the Eagles now, Dallas Goedert. Mm-hmm. He does everything. He blocks well. He is a incredible pass guy, right? But
where do you put Gronkowski?
I think his career is much shorter than Travis Kelce. I think if you have Gronkowski and Travis Kelce right next to each other, I think if Gronkowski plays more healthy years, you're going to have probably Gronkowski on top. That being said, the reason why I picked Travis Kelce is undeniably every single greatest tight end of all time. The Tony Gonzalez's, right?
The Gates. And
yes.
all them,
The Sharps, right? All of them. They have all come out and said Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time, without a doubt. And I think for a position like that, where it has changed and altered so much over the years. It went from a position that really only blocked to a position that you had to be a great blocker and a pass catcher to a position now where you see a tight end get taken in the draft top 20 every single year, where you're like, does he even know how to block? Mm-hmm. Right? The last couple of years, Kyle Pitts, and what was the guy that's taken this year? Jets took him. Is it the Jets that took him? I can't remember.
You know, anyways. Kelce, one of the things you can say is he has been consistent.
Yes.
He has been great, and he won at the elite level.
And they give him a bad time about not blocking well, but he's not really that bad of a blocker. He's not. What people say, and the critics of Kelce's blocking really comes from the fact that there's some amazing tight ends who block really freaking well out there.
They can't catch like Kelce.
But they can't catch like Kelce. And what he does different than every single one else is go look at the way he responds to when Patrick Mahomes needs him the most. Oh my gosh. Have you ever seen it? It's a switch. It's a switch that he flips in his brain. He'll be running his route tree. He'll look back at the ball, see that he was maybe the first or second option. Patrick didn't go to him. He instantly goes to, how can I now make myself open for when Patrick can't find someone else? And he gets there every single time. And Patrick knows he's going to get there every single time. Anyways, my argument for him being one of the greatest players of all time, listen, the AFC's thin. I'll just start with that.
That's right. And that's what we got to remember.
Yeah.
He might not, he's not in the top 10 of all time players.
Possibly, yes, absolutely.
But the AFC, this is an indictment on the receivers in the AFC.
Yeah.
Receivers and running backs are not high enough to elevate.
There's no receivers I wanted to take. There was no running backs I wanted to take. There were some good quarterbacks I wanted. On the defensive side, like I said, I was wanting to go with Ray Lewis or Ed Reed, but I couldn't pick between the two, so I just left them off completely. That left me with the next person on my list, which was Travis Kelce. And the reason being is because every single tight end that's ever played in the NFL, whether it's the old era or the modern era, has come out and said he is undeniably the best tight end.
I just thought on both of our Mount Rushmores, we have Kelce brothers.
Yep.
Absolutely, we do.
Unbelievable. Oh my
I think
gosh.
it's funny that we picked opposite teams.
I think it's funny we picked opposite Kelce's. That's hilarious.
This show needs help. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Is this going to be a good one?
Oh yeah.
All right.
So this pick is a position that has not been mentioned in any way, shape, or form yet. But me personally, I find it to be one of the most important.
Is it one of the
on the entire field?
Okay.
It can be one of the most crucial positions in an entire game. It can win or lose you games.
Okay.
And that is a kicker.
Are you going to go with
Justin
That's
Tucker.
what I thought you were going to say.
I chose Justin Tucker, the greatest kicker of all time.
Oh, that makes sense. You said special teams earlier, and then when you started saying
Yes.
Ravens, I was thinking Ed Reed.
When you said special teams, I thought you were talking Deion Sanders because of punt return.
I think that's where I got off the track there.
So
Justin Tucker.
he's without a doubt the greatest kicker of all time. I witnessed him beat my 49ers in Baltimore 3 years ago in the rain. That was brutal. But his 60 whatever 5-yard whatever he had, it was
He's not only
ridiculous.
the distance record holder. I think he's the record holder for the highest percentage.
Also the most games played as a kicker.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. He probably has more points accounted for than most of your favorite quarterbacks.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, but think about this. So you're a GM for a team. You are getting to pick the greatest players of all time. You're going to pick a 52-man roster, 11 offense, 11 defense. Then you got your special teams. You're going to use right off the bat, one of your first picks, at least your top 4 pick, would be a kicker.
Well, I think
In this scenario, I picked
okay.
Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, and then I picked Justin Tucker. Absolutely. Those are the 3 people that are going to score me the most points.
So, but I'm just saying, like, here would be my problem. There's no doubt you picked the greatest kicker, and he scored more points than any of those guys. So I get that. I guess how often, one of the things, if you look from a GM standpoint, this is just my thought process where I'm coming from. Everybody's going after the quarterback. Everybody's going after protecting the quarterback, and everybody's going after hurting the quarterback. First round picks, I think there was Janikowski was a late
Steven Janikowski. It's because you're not talking to the mic. You gotta really just put your mouth in there.
Janikowski, I think, was taken in the first round. Teams do not ever pick. I mean, I flipped out when the 49ers in the compensatory pick in the 3rd round, which was unheard of. We took Moody 2 years ago. That's very, very unusual. Man, I'm thinking of all the greatest. A kicker. That is.
Hear me out.
I love the unique perspective that is brought.
Well, listen though. If you're not talking about,
I do like that.
If you're not talking about drafting these guys, and you're just purely saying who was the most dominant, like
at their position,
at their position,
yes,
I can see how you can make an argument for that.
Yeah, because when you say his name, nobody argues he's the best.
Yes,
and when you have that,
that's like the Michael Phelps thing, right?
Yes,
no
Phelps.
one argues.
Yeah.
No one's going to argue that. In the same way, no one's going to argue Justin Tucker's the greatest kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I that's kind of I think what you're thinking.
Yeah.
At that position,
But also, I think people often
devalue it.
Yeah, devalue the kicker position, because if you don't have a good quarterback, or if you don't have good receivers, if you have weak spots in your offense, as long as you can get the ball to like the 20-yard line, if you have a good kicker, you're almost guaranteed 3 points.
And it does help your receiver.
Yeah.
Because your receiver knows I've got to get. The Ravens know the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
We got to get to the 40-yard line.
Close.
And he'll make it. And he makes it every time.
And he makes it every time. That person is, when you get a kicker, you're guaranteeing yourself points.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Any alternates that you guys we didn't mention? Because Ed Reed would be on there.
Yeah, I just had Ed Reed and Ray Lewis as the only alternates I had.
Oh, goodness.
I'm probably going to get flack for this, but I would argue Patrick Mahomes. And the only reason I would do that is because the trajectory from where he is now and to where he could be, he's on par with Peyton Manning, like up in those rafters. So
it's close.
He's not there right now. I wouldn't put him there now.
But he already
very likely could get there soon.
I think he already, if you were just talking
he's got
AFC,
3 Super Bowls already.
If you're talking about AFC strictly, though, I think you could still probably make an argument easily for him to be in the top 10.
Yes.
Now.
Oh, top 10? Absolutely,
yeah. You can make an argument the Peyton Manning one, if you wanted to make an argument over Peyton Manning, even now, is he's got 3, Peyton has 2, but Peyton's problem, his second one, was he with Denver or whatever, at the end of his career, he was not anything of what he used to be. He was just a manageable quarterback at best. So he really has one. I mean, he has two, but he was carried.
No, I
into
get
the
what you're
second
saying.
one.
Yeah.
So
He didn't lead an absolute
I don't think that's
trash.
crazy.
He didn't lead an absolute trash receiver core like Patrick Mahomes just did to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah, that's true. So
And we got them all coming back next
But we
year.
don't. Well, anyway. All right. Well,
Listen, you know what? I did hear a report come out the other day that the Kansas City Chiefs said they'll no longer be selling the extra buttery popcorn, so they might do better this year.
Oh, no. That's beautiful.
You
I
have
don't-
each given me a ring. I do not want to hear anything.
Listen, I did hear something the other day, and we might as well say it on air. I heard Ricky Pearsall's not doing so hot.
No, he's doing great.
I heard he's injured.
Well, he just got hurt. Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's going to be okay.
Yeah, but how's that go with your Brandon and Ayuk negotiations?
Okay.
Now you kind of need him.
I'm just going to tell you my Brandon Ayuk update for what I would do.
Didn't he request a trade?
He did.
did?
We should.
So did CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The 49ers will pay him. They'll work it out. It's just a ploy to try to pressure. I don't think they should. I think they should trade him. I would trade him. And I love Brandon Ayuk. I love him. I mean, I really like him. But in the NFL, there's a cap, and it's a reality. And you're going to have to pay Purdy. And you have. And
Why
you're-
not get rid of Debo first?
They can't this year. They can next year. That's why I think
That
they'll
really
keep him.
sucks.
I think what they'll do is they'll keep him.
Franchise.
If I was them, what I would really do is I'd keep him, pay him this $14 million this year, and then I'd franchise tag him next year, and either trade him after you franchise tagged him or not. But you get him for what you're going to pay him. I think Ayuk will take the money reluctantly. I think he'll be sad for a little while, and then he'll realize $100 million is still a lot of money. But the problem is you can't pay. We can't trade Debo. We'll pay him almost the whole contract next year for another team. Next year you can trade him. But we've got overpaid. We're paying Trent Williams $30 million. We've got Kittle's one of the highest. You've got Warner's one of the highest at his position. You've got a lot of people everywhere. Hargrave, you got it. You can't pay everybody.
No.
And
Let me say this.
Pearsall's looking good. And for the 49ers, I'll just end it with this. He will not get as many receptions with the 49ers as he will with somebody else.
Yes,
So
that is
if
correct.
you play another team, he's worth $30 million.
Yeah.
For the 49ers, he's not going to get 7-8 receptions. He's going to get 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So you're paying $30 million for 3 or 4. You can't do it.
I will say this from me personally, from an outsider perspective. I have people on the Eagles, just like the 49ers or the Kansas City Chiefs, where I would say they are my guys, where I would do anything in my power as a GM to keep them. I think someone like a George Kittle,
Keep him. Yes.
George
Warner.
Kittle, no matter what he costs, I'm paying it.
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey at this point in time, no matter what he costs, I'm paying it.
Yep.
Fred Warner, no matter what he costs, I'm paying it.
And Trent Williams.
Trent Williams, no matter what he costs, I'm paying it. I really think Brandon Ayuk's that guy. I think no matter what he costs, I'm paying it. Because you are not going to find a lot of wide receivers who will
Block.
will produce 1,000 yards in an offense that doesn't really use singular wide receivers, prime wide receivers. And he's not only that, but he's a fantastic blocker, works his tail off.
I hear you, and it's a reasonable argument. I'm concerned for the longevity. You overpay for people, and I just don't know where the money is. And Purdy's going to get the money's insane. It's going to be $60 million.
I wouldn't pay him.
I would not pay
I'm
Purdy
just
that
I'm
money.
just telling you that's what people.
Purdy is not worth that money.
I wouldn't pay him.
Well, I think let's see what he does this year. He's got a long time, but I'm just saying the 49ers are in a tough situation. When you have 3 receivers, that's a tight end, and 2 other receivers, and you're paying that much money.
Hear me out.
That's a lot of money to spend there.
Hear
You
me
know
out.
what they should do?
They don't pay him. They put all their draft capital in the basket of another quarterback, and they go get another quarterback.
No.
I think they trade 1-to-1 with Trevor Lawrence,
Oh, I wouldn't know.
and they don't have to pay him hardly anything.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be he's $60 million.
He just signed a new contract.
Yeah, he just signed it, and it's
I know, but they don't have to pay him as much as Purdy's going to ask for.
That's
every
true.
year it gets
That's
higher
true.
and higher. But anyway, that's
Because Purdy is on social media because he's 20, 21. And he knows that everyone's like, he's the next Tom Brady. This guy's the best quarterback in the league. And he's like, yeah, I am. I need the money. And then,
Well, we'll see what
Listen,
they take.
if
GMs would
I
be
am
like,
the 49ers,
"Dude, I
I'm
don't know
doing
who
everything
you
in my
are."
power not to pay Purdy. And the reason being is you pay Purdy, you will for sure 150% lose some of the greatest players to ever put on your jersey.
Well, the problem is, I think if you're an NFL GM, I think there's only 4 or 5 quarterbacks you pay that money to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to ask, is he? And he is he's knocking on that door, but we'll know this year.
Yeah.
Last year, he was, but it's 1 year. You need to try to do it multiple years. The first year he did really well, and it was a surprise. And everybody said he was going to fall off because now they have a book on him. Well, they didn't read the book because he had maybe the best year of anybody. He was at the top. But let's see this year. It's his first off season, and we'll see. But I don't know, Brandon Ayuk, with the way Kyle plays, he only is going to throw 3 or 4 times, no matter who it is. So the question is, so that's just my challenge. But I think in the end, they're going to take him. Brandon Ayuk has nothing to stand on. He's locked in.
You know what I don't want? I don't want your stinky little 49ers selling him over to the Washington Redskins and going to play with Jaden Daniels over the Washington Redskins.
That's what he wants.
Sorry, not the Redskins, the football team.
The
Washington
Commanders.
Yeah. That's the last thing I want because you bring Brandon Ayuk to my division, I'm going to be pissed.
And he wants to go.
Pissed. Listen, if Brandon Ayuk doesn't come to our division and CeeDee Lamb goes bye-bye, I'm going to be feeling really good about our division. I'm not going to lie.
Especially on the receiver side.
Yeah.
You get rid. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for now. That's our Mount Rushmores. You guys tell us in your comments what you guys think. If you agree, disagree. If you want to put a long snapper in there, whatever you want to do, you're okay to do that. And we'll come back and do this again next time. Thank you.